All right, welcome in everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope everyone is enjoying their holiday. I've got Matt Winnick back with me for a Thanksgiving show. Matt, feast week for me turned into famine week real quick. I had a 5-1 day on Monday, and I think I'm 1-9 since. So we got to right the ship here, and I'm bringing you in to help me out and help me do that today. How is your week going since we last talked on Tuesday?
No pressure on me. No, it's a lot of hours spent on the couch, I think, is probably the most important calculation. Need to get up and move around a little bit. The back is every year that I do this, my back is a little more sore every year. So maybe a chiropractor after this week, but it's been a lot of fun hoops.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I know we're somewhat geographically located near each other, and it has been so rainy and windy here. I haven't even been able to get out to walk the dogs much, so I'm in the same boat. Back hurts, bankroll hurting after the last 2 days, it'll be nice that when this thins out a little bit. But we do have a nice slate to attack today on Thanksgiving. It's almost like college hoops said, you know what, we're going to try to take over Thanksgiving. You've got big networks putting Duke, Arkansas up against an NFL game. I think we've got Michigan State, North Carolina going up against one of the big NFL games. And it just seems like a new Thanksgiving tournament pops up every year. So we've got a pretty nice slate to kick around today. And I'll start with one of the big games. I believe this game is out in Chicago. This is a little bit later tonight. Duke, Arkansas. And I'll set this one up for you by saying, I got to see Arkansas play Michigan State in person a couple weeks ago. Arkansas lost that game, but I left the Breslin Center far more impressed with Arkansas than I was with Michigan State. Just like what I was seeing possession for possession, I felt like Arkansas's issue, and the reason they lost that game was being on the road. And then, of course, like there was a couple of possessions where when they couldn't get up and down in transition and they were forced to do something, create something in the half court, it turned into a bad shot. And that's ultimately why I think they didn't overcome Michigan State in that game. My initial thought here was this number's pretty big. I might want to get involved with the dog, but I'm going to see what you have to say about it before I do that.
Yeah, I think the perception of Michigan State has changed since Arkansas played them, right? When Arkansas didn't, I believe that line was even. I believe it was money line. So the fact that Arkansas almost won that game, now that we know that Michigan State is probably quite for real, definitely speaks highly on Arkansas. The thing with Duke is they're really juiced analytically because they're just absolutely laying waste to their bye game, their inferior opponents. Western Carolina by 41, Army by 55, Indiana State, who's actually pretty decent, by 38, Niagara by 56, go down the list. Against high major competition, if you include the exhibition game against Tennessee, Cameron Boozer has really struggled to score on the interior. He is a very physically gifted player. He's strong, but he's not a great leaper, and he doesn't have amazing touch around the hoop. Arkansas is huge. They have elite length. They play two bigs on the floor basically at all times, and they're going to have a lot of bodies to throw at Cameron Boozer, who is not going to be insanely efficient in this game. And Duke's offense in general has not been overly efficient in these games. They are very dependent on Boozer down low and then a lot of three-point shooting, which Arkansas's length should be able to take away. So I do think this game is probably closer than it suggests just because of their analytics being juiced because of the bye games. And then I also kind of think this goes under. Duke's been running a lot against teams that aren't very good. I mentioned those bye games, all well over 70 possessions besides the Niagara one, but the Kansas and Texas games, their two power conference games, 67 and 66 possessions. So I think this one looks a lot closer to that number. And then when you have Ken Palmer projected for 71, then you're thinking that there are probably fewer points than projected.
Yeah, and on the flip side, you made a really good point about Duke's analytics being juiced up, playing some of the worst teams in Division I this year. Army, we talked about the other day. I think they're a bottom 10 team in all of college basketball. This is a down year for Niagara. Like typically Greg Paulus, even though he loses his best player every year, doesn't get elite talent there, has like a team that'll scrap a little bit. I think this might be the worst team he's had since being there from just straight up like what he's like putting out on the floor. So that's two huge absolute blowout losses. I guess the point I was going to make is on the flip side, Arkansas's numbers might be watered down a little bit by some of those types of games. But like, you're looking at Arkansas, like Samford and Winthrop, you can't just roll out of bed and beat those types of teams by 40. Like, and I think, I caught some of the Winthrop game where it's like, and this might be like a Calipari thing, I don't know, but like I feel like his teams are sometimes uninterested in games like that. And it's one thing to play Central Arkansas, right? Arkansas wins that game 93-56. But like against like quality teams from like the Big South and the SoCon, like if you're not ready to play, they'll beat you. Samford can beat a team like Arkansas if they're not ready to play. Winthrop had him on the ropes, and I think that like right there, I think the average person doesn't realize like how good those teams are, and that they're not the same, right? A Winthrop or a Samford is not the same as an Army or a Niagara. So I think I made this. There it is. Yeah, I made the number 9.5. I was hoping for a little bit more. Who knows? We'll see how this one gets bet throughout the day. I think if this got to like 11 or 11.5, I may have a play on Arkansas. I just think it's too many points.
Yeah, this is a perfect game to highlight the fact that looking at high major teams by games, like you got to kind of eliminate them when you go through these games. Like Duke, how they're juiced in one way, and then Arkansas, like sure they didn't cover against Samford or Winthrop. I don't care. They beat Jackson State by 54. I don't care. Like throw those games out. What did you do against equal comp? And Arkansas played Michigan State even on the road in a Rutgers environment, and Duke won pretty easily in their two games. But it's not like Texas and Kansas. Their opponents had a lot of offensive juice. Arkansas probably has more with Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, let's bring Garth in here. Garth, thank you for the donation. And yeah, let's look at an early tip. I believe the earliest tip on the slate today. This is going to be Richmond and Furman. They're somewhere, I believe they're down in Orlando, which is probably the tournament that used to be the premier one on Thanksgiving is now sort of a mid-major tournament down at Disney. But Richmond Furman opened 4.5. I should navigate back to my screen to see where this is now. I'm assuming, yeah, okay. So Furman's taking a little bit of money. Matt, that doesn't really surprise me. I feel like Furman's one of those teams that right now for the foreseeable future is going to take money because they've underachieved really since opening day when they got run out by High Point. Are you buying like Furman being undervalued at this point, or is this a down year for the Paladins?
I think that Furman is underrated and Richmond is overrated. So I'm actually going to have to disagree with Garth here. Furman, yeah, got absolutely blitzed. They won High Point. The number one stat in that game is that High Point had 17 steals. Like you're not going to come remotely close to beating a basketball team it's not even 17 turnovers. It's the 17 steals. So 17 live ball turnovers. Like game over, good night, it's over. Then they played Troy, who was known under Scott Cross to be one of the most aggressive and pressing defenses in the country. 13 steals allowed. You're not winning a game like that either. Then they played Northern Iowa, who's actually been one of the best steals teams in the country all season. They forced another 13 turnovers. Finally, Furman doesn't have an elite pressing defense. They play Queens. They win by double digits. They were up by as much as 20 late in that game. So now we've seen Furman get killed by teams that press, and we've seen them kill a team that doesn't. Richmond does not press. They play a soft defense. Richmond's played 4 games this year. They've covered 3, but you think about the 3 that they've covered. East Carolina lost over 100 KenPom spots. VMI lost 90 KenPom spots. Gardner-Webb lost 50 spots. They played 3 of the biggest underachievers in the entire country. In their 4th game, William and Mary, who's been overachieving, Richmond needed a late run down the stretch to beat them at home. So Richmond has now gained a bunch of analytic value by killing 3 teams that have been way worse than projected. And Furman is now 1-0 against teams that aren't going to destroy them with their lack of point guard. They don't have a point guard. Furman's huge, but they have no point guard. Richmond won't take advantage of that fact. I think Furman wins this game outright.
Yeah, this is a scenario where had I had a better last 2 days and not been like a little bit gun shy, I'm probably playing Furman here for a lot of the things you said. My number comes out similar to where it's at, but I'm finding that like with these neutral floors and not a very big slate of games, my number's close on a lot of these. Like I don't think the books are going to be making too many glaring mistakes today on this slate. No extra board. So yeah, I think I literally was on the open of 4.5 with Furman. Kind of wish I took it now as this heads down. Looks like 3.5 is some places are bouncing around. Maybe get a 4.5 at some point within the next hour. So Bob Ritchie's been at Furman for I think close to a decade now. Don't think he's ever had a bad team in that span of time. If there's someone that I trust to sort of figure out the turnover issues, you talked about the High Point game they just turned it over basically every possession. And that was literally their first game of the season. So, I kind of, after that game and the Troy game, I said, man, like, and this was just my general thought. I said, like, SoCon might be down this year. Like all of these teams might be bad. We chatted about Greensboro for a minute on Tuesday. They look quite a bit down from where they've been in years past. And so I started to pump the brakes on Furman a little bit, but based on what you talked about in terms of the three teams that they've played that really are going to press them, and then Richmond maybe not being that, I'm with you. I would take the points here with the Paladins.
Yeah.
Oh, someone says Trigger deserves a raise for working Thanksgiving. I appreciate that. There's some folks that might disagree with you after my performance the last 2 days, but that's what, like, feast week, 100+ games. That's the thing. Like, I'm not a huge volume guy typically. Like when I bet baseball, and when I'm betting baseball, it might be one game a day, but we have like 30 teams in Major League Baseball. You get 364, and then the powers that be decide that they're all going to play in like a 3-day window. You're going to have the 5-in-1 day. You're going to have the 1-in-5 day. It happens. But thank you, Jesse. I appreciate that. Oh, and that's Jesse Schul. That's one of our guys here at WagerTalk. So maybe you can put in a word with our bosses. That'd be great. Very much appreciate that. Matt, I got a question for you. Someone DM'd me before I came on the show, and this is kind of interesting. And I didn't check this, but going off memory, it makes sense. All the games in Atlantis yesterday were low-scoring games, I think, across the board. Now, I've been to one of these ballroom tournaments before. I got to go to Baja Mar a couple years ago. Fantastic experience. It's really cool. But I do remember the first sort of game there, teams getting off to a slow start. Are you going to look overs in Bahamas today at all? Or do you think like maybe teams, is that not something you typically do? Talk to me about that in general.
Someone I know that loves that angle is a really good bettor in the college basketball community, Max Hoffmeyer, shot quality bets. Definitely suggest checking him out. He just posted this. All 4 games went under, yes, but the 3-point shooting splits, 29% Wichita, 13% St. Mary's, 21% Colorado State, 32% Virginia Tech, 32% Western Kentucky, 30% VCU, 14% USF. The only team that shot over like country average from deep was Vanderbilt at 38%. And even that game still barely went under. The market obviously understands that all the games are at least 2 to 3 to 5 points under the KenPom projection. I understand that. You can look at it both ways. On one hand, probably some positive regression, like teams will hit more jumpers. But on the other hand, like you watch Maui games, you see the rim is very soft. You watch Atlantis games, you see the rim is pretty hard. Like that does exist. So then the question for me is, which team is a jump shooting team? Because the rim's not going to be hard if you're shooting layups. And so especially the Colorado State game, because they're a very 3-point heavy team, and Wichita will be forced to shoot a ton of jumpers. Colorado State games, just in general, are very jumper heavy games because they are 22nd in 3 points attempted and bottom 10 in 3 points allowed. They allow a ton of threes and shoot a ton of threes. Jump shooting game. So that one in particular is like, well, probably not a lot of points in this one.
Yeah, let's stay on that game for a second because I been dying to bet against Wichita State. Like I have a circle on them. So I made the mistake of thinking Loyola Chicago would play a game that was like remotely competitive a couple weeks back. Played Loyola Chicago on the road at Wichita State, and they dropped 95 points. And I believe they've covered every game since. Now I took so I actually went back and played against them last weekend, and took a kind of like a brutal loss in that game with Milwaukee, 75-58 final. But Milwaukee just went ice cold like the last 6 minutes of that game. Like Wichita probably didn't really deserve to win that game by double digits. I think they were down by 8 or 9 points early. And then yesterday, I didn't have much desire to lay 10 with St. Mary's, but again, like they come out, they cover another. So that is I believe they're on at least a 4 or 5 game streak. I can't remember if they covered against Asheville. They did. So they've actually covered every game they've played this year. I think they're 6-0 against the number. Probably should have had that teed up before I just rambled along about it. But the point is, like you're saying, a lot of jumpers. Kenyon Giles, I feel like he could pull up from 3-quarter court at this point. It's going to go in. I mean, he's literally single-handedly closed out spreads, just pulling up from the logo. At what point does that sort of fade? And then when it does, they're probably going to lose some games. Like, I don't know that I'm like overly impressed with this Wichita State team outside of some of like the shot making so far. So I'll kick it back to you. Any interest in playing Colorado State here, or are they kind of in the same boat?
Yeah, poor Radford, because Kenyon Giles played there for 2 years and shot 30% from three. And he's over 40% for the rest of his career outside of that. Like, that sucks. I feel bad for them. Wichita State's not good. I don't have any belief that Wichita State's good. They needed a late run to cover against Asheville. Prairie View A&M sucks. Loyola Chicago is like the worst team in the country somehow. Boise and St. Mary's were both lucky backdoors. And then Milwaukee. Okay, sure. The most impressive thing about Colorado State last night was, like I said, they're a 3-point shooting team, and they couldn't buy 3 with those awful rims, and they still not only covered but nearly beat Virginia Tech. The fact that they can win by more than just shooting threes is a huge deal here. And yeah, Wichita State, like, as a big favorite, whatever. As a dog covering, sure. This is like their first true even matchup against a team that is almost identically ranked as them. And if you have a really overvalued team, like in my opinion, Wichita is, that's the perfect spot to fade, right? Because there's no funky, Giles hits 2 threes and St. Mary's doesn't cover anymore. There's no, we need a late surge to beat this bad team. Like, these are 2 even teams, at least in analytical rankings, and they're not even teams in my mind. So yeah, Colorado State for me.
Yeah, that may. So we are gonna try again with the parlay on the show, as we do every day, and we will have you'll pick a best bet, I'll pick a best bet, and then we'll agree on one. I very much agree with Colorado State, and I have a feeling if something makes my card, that this is probably going to be it today. Colorado State opening night. I end up playing Incarnate Word on what was otherwise a good opening night for me, and Colorado State just eviscerated that team, and then went on to sort of do that against like all the lesser opponents they were playing at home. And I pretty much instantly was like, okay, Ali Farouk-Manesh was probably a big reason that Colorado State's had the success they've had. In addition, like, I love Medved, like, he's a great coach, but everything I've read about Farouk-Manesh has said that he's, one of the top assistants, and that his sort of like the way he schemed, spaces the floor was a lot him in addition to Medved. So instantly bumped Colorado State up. And this is like the first time I feel like you're actually getting probably like, well, after the line move yesterday, I would say 4.5 was like a good number to take them. But this feels like the first time where they're truly undervalued because they're not getting this crazy bump for playing on their home floor. And correct me if I'm wrong, did they just had a bad loss recently, like prior to this?
Denver. But to be fair, Denver did shoot 48% from 3 and had 4 turnovers.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm kind of in on this. I think this is going to be a play for me today. And we can, someone says now really liking Wichita State. Hey, if you want to take Wichita State to cover their 7th straight game, good luck. But there's the regression monster will hit the Shockers at some point. And I think I'm willing to put a few bucks on it being here. So we'll circle back to that. We'll lock it in at the end. But yeah, I'm with you on Colorado State. Now I want to stay in Atlantis for a second because I do see a pretty considerable line move in the Western Kentucky South Florida game. And I guess the question I want to continue to build on, maybe overs is not the way to go, but like I definitely agree with this move here. With a team that fires up the volume of shots that South Florida does, that didn't have a great offensive game yesterday, do you think maybe they bounce back from that and have a little bit more success in this matchup?
Well, yeah. I mean, I just explained all of the bad shooting. When you talk about that particular game, those were 2 of the 3 worst shooting teams on the floor. They were ugly shooters, and obviously they both lost that game. So I think that it's going to be tough. If you think about the opponents that they've played, right, in that particular matchup, like obviously advantage goes to Western Kentucky, given the fact that they just, played Vanderbilt real tight. That's impressive. That's not something that a lot of teams, any team has done this year. They play like 1,100,000 dudes. I believe that they got to be they're 18th in bench minutes. Almost half of their minutes come from their bench. So on a back-to-back, pretty big deal, right? You get to play a whole bunch of dudes, keep them fresh, get to the free throw line a ton. Tegan Moore is a star. I don't have a strong feeling about that game. I don't know if there's anything that you have anything going on there.
I watched pretty much every possession of the South Florida Oklahoma State game last week, and I felt like they had one sort of little lull that kind of cost them that game. Otherwise, like very impressive. I was a little surprised that they lost yesterday. I didn't have any action in that game, but I definitely leaned their way against VCU to kind of see them. What I will say about South Florida, which I don't think is going to come into play here, it's like I feel like when they get behind, they have a hard time sort of like getting back into it against a capable team, like a team that can score. Like VCU kind of took that game over in the first half and was able to keep them at arm's length. And I'll go back to the Oklahoma State game. As soon as Oklahoma State was able to sort of create some distance, South Florida had a really hard time getting stops, getting back in to that game. You could almost say the same thing about George Washington earlier this year. Like once they kind of fell behind, and that one I didn't watch a ton of, but 99-95, it going back through the box score seemed like every time they needed to get back in it, they really couldn't. And those are, the 3 kind of games that would be like you're talking about trying to filter out the games that are, maybe like Coppin State, right? Not even going to look at that game to try to like draw anything from it. No. Florida A&M, not going to look at that game to try to draw anything from it. So I guess like to bring it back to this game, I'm not sure that Western Kentucky has got the juice offensively that some of those other teams do. And this one sort of feels like, to me, South Florida can get in the lead, and then it could snowball in their direction where they're just throwing they're Alabama 2.0 in terms of at least the way they kind of want to play, I would suppose. And maybe the volume gets to the point where they like overwhelm Western Kentucky and pull away. So I lean South Florida, but at the current number, it won't be a bet for me. Definitely lean their way. Garth says Topper alum. What I've seen since my time there, 2009 to 2013, if they overperform one game, they underperform the next. So I guess they overperformed yesterday, covered a big number against Vandy. So if you subscribe to that theory, then this would be the underperform spot.
Well, I hate to rain on Garth's parade, but that's 3 different coaches over that span.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work. That's not a thing. It's been 3 coaches.
Yeah, that's I hear you there. So as always, we started the show with the Arkansas Duke breakdown. This is always live and on demand on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. So if you missed any part of this, you can navigate back, and we will put the timestamps in, even on the holiday. We're going to get the timestamps in for you. I know people freak out if there's no timestamp, so we will get the game stamped. And we did start with Arkansas State Duke. And while you're over there, like, subscribe. Head on over to Matt's Twitter. I don't think your handle's in here, but I think it's just your name. Is that correct?
At Matthew Winnick, yeah, just my name with no space.
Yeah, he puts great stuff up there, and most of your stuff at this point, or a lot of it, is at Basket Under Review, which is a tremendous site. Tell the people, we should have let off with that. Tell the folks what they can find at Basket Under Review.
Yeah, just a lot of good college basketball analysis from most of the most well-respected analysts in the game. It's not media, clutter. It's straight analysis, and it's really good stuff if you're into college basketball beyond like the surface level.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. There's something new every day that's interesting, that'll help you sort of kind of formulate an angle or an opinion, and it's just a tremendous resource, which is like, knowing the 3-Man Weave guys and remembering when they used to do the almanac. One of the first almanacs I actually went down to my fiance's dad's like factory and put it on paper. Like I printed the whole thing out because I was like, I can't navigate through this PDF. I actually sent Kai the copy. I think he still has the hard copy, but like to kind of follow them to, now they're at Basket Under Review and see everyone sort of come together. All the people that I've followed for years, all basically in one place. It's phenomenal. And it's like $10 a month. So if you're into that kind of stuff, it's well worth it. All right, back to the games. Well, I guess we mentioned Oklahoma State, and Craig says Northwestern Oklahoma State Pokes are very underappreciated this year. I would somewhat agree with that. I definitely think they flew under the radar maybe coming into the season. This game is also at the United Center. I believe this one is going to follow Duke and Arkansas. I don't really know if I'm going to bump Northwestern at the United Center on Thanksgiving night much for home court, but they're certainly probably baking that into the number a little bit. How do you see this one, Northwestern, Oklahoma State?
So Oklahoma State's third in tempo this entire season. Steve Lutz loves to run. Every single game outside of one has been over 70, has been 78 plus possessions, which is insane. Northwestern is dead last in the entire country in defensive tempo. They have the slowest defensive possessions. They make you play slow. So this is one team that loves to run and one team that loves to slow it down. I lean the slow it down team in most of these examples just because I think it's way harder to speed a team up than it is to slow a team down. And if Oklahoma State can't play their super fast game, they're not forcing turnovers at the level that Steve Lutz typically does. Northwestern has been really impressive so far this season, both with their stars and their depth. Adding their transfer portal gets of Jaden Reed and Arrington Page have been phenomenal. They did a fantastic job finding underrated guys in the portal. And Oklahoma State, like I'm not sold on them. They're just a bunch of guys that are good at scoring, but I don't think they're a really good team. They're a lot of very individual good players. And so in that case, I probably lean the slower team and the better quote unquote team in a close spread, close game.
Yeah, I love the point you made about Northwestern being able to slow it down and sort of like instill that into the game here, because Oklahoma State, I don't think has played anyone that could knock them off of what they want to do yet. If you look at teams like Oral Roberts, Prairie View, Corpus Christi, Nichols, like Oklahoma State's going to be able to sort of play that game. That game's going to go the way Oklahoma State wants it to go. And it's going to be up to you as the far inferior team to keep up with them. Texas A&M still trying to figure things out, new coach, new system. So that turned into a pretty big blowout, which probably surprised some people. But that's, again, it's not, it's Bucky McMillan who also is going to play fast. So, that's that. And
that was their slowest game.
And that was their slowest game. And then you talk about South Florida, all they want to do is rip up and down the court. So they've essentially played 6 games and not one team has either A, tried to slow them down, or B, had the skill set to be able to slow them down a little bit. So yeah, it could be a shock to the system a little bit for them to go against a Northwestern. And did I see a little movement in that game? Where are we at on the Is one of these two teams taking money? I thought I saw that light up. Let me navigate back to that. Curious to know what the current line is and why. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so Northwestern, I guess I guess I agree with that move. I don't think I'm going to lay 3.5, but if you got in at the opener, or you can still get a reasonably priced money line, I think I agree with Northwestern being the right side.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go. I guess we should talk about North Carolina, Michigan State. I saw Garth. We'll get to your game next. I saw Ethan Bainbridge, who was I know he's a Michigan State fan. We met him out in Bowling Green a couple weeks ago. Great dude. We had a great time. I think he's usually up in Michigan going to Michigan State games. Wants to talk about Michigan State, and we should definitely hit this game. So going back to our conversation earlier, I know I said I left East Lansing that night thinking, Arkansas is probably the better of these two teams in terms of I felt like they played the more impressive basketball, but let's credit Michigan State. They won that game, I think, going 1 for 14 from 3, and all they've done since has impressed. All they've done since is sort of to me say, we're actually a lot better than we were sort of rated coming into the season. Now they get this sort of standalone big game against North Carolina down in Florida, neutral court. Looks like Sparty looks like UNC's taking a little bit of money. This one keeps bouncing back and forth. Great game. Had it rated pretty even. How are you seeing UNC Michigan State?
Assuming Michigan State doesn't shoot 50% from 3 again, like the Kentucky game, because realistically that's not happening. Not only, they were due for some 3-point shooting regression, but they're not a good shooting team. All things considered. Jeremy Fears can't shoot, and he's at 44%. Jackson Kohler can't shoot, and he's at 45%. If anything, they're probably a little bit overinflated in 3-point shooting. Their biggest strength is they're huge and they're physical. However, North Carolina's bigger, which is this is the first time by far this year that Michigan State has dealt with a team bigger than they are. The front court of Caleb Wilson and Henry Visar is the best one in the country. They're insanely good, the two of them. Henry Visar is maybe the most underrated big in the country, and Caleb Wilson's 3rd in Ken Pom Player of the Year rankings right now. That is the toughest matchup that Michigan State's bigs have faced this year. It's not even close. So I actually think that that's an advantage for North Carolina because of how skilled they are. Michigan State's bigs are more bruisers. Caleb Wilson is going to make one of Kohler or Carson Cooper play in space. Kyan Evans has been really, pretty successful moving over to the point guard spot. And the only thing that makes me not super in on North Carolina in this game is the coaching edge. Tom Izzo's a much better coach than Hubert Davis. But when you have two teams' strengths going up against each other in the bigs for both teams, and one of them has, in my opinion, a pretty big advantage, which North Carolina does, I'm going to lean their way.
Yeah, I kind of had a tough time either really gravitating toward either side in that game. You make a great point about the shooting. That will be Michigan State's undoing probably at times this year where they just can't buy one from outside or hit a jump shot. Probably should have been in that Arkansas game. I'll go back and just point out that so many bad possessions by Arkansas in that game where they just settled for a terrible shot. And I don't even know that it was Michigan State so much just being that much better. I think they got sucked into just being on the road and settled for really, really just not good shots. Something that I'm sure Calipari ripped them for after that game. So yeah, that's certainly the concern. If Michigan State can't hit the threes here, you got to probably lean a little bit toward UNC. I think I would agree with that. All right. All right, moving on. Let's see. Garth says, and we appreciate the donation again. We'll get you up here with your comment highlighted. We'll get to your game. So appreciate you, Garth. Colorado team total over 75.5. So just want to make sure I've got the venue right for this game. Matt, where is
sure in Palm Springs? I've actually been there. It's a very nice arena.
Okay. Awesome. Did you get to go to one of these preseason tournaments out there?
Arizona, Michigan State 2 years ago, Thanksgiving Day. A lot of fun. I can travel on Thanksgiving because I'm Canadian, so it's not actually important.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So Garth wants to know Colorado team total over 75.5. I guess you'll have to let us know. Are the rims soft enough out there to get him over that number?
I have no opinion on the rims, but I do have an opinion on that take, given the fact that San Francisco's schedule has been way harder than Colorado's. Colorado has had 4 mid-major teams: Montana State, Eastern Washington, Alabama State, and UC Davis, all at home. And then Providence, who cannot play defense, also at home. This is Colorado's first game outside of the friendly confines of Boulder versus San Francisco has gone at Memphis, and they've gone neutral site versus Minnesota. They played Bradley, tough team as always. Those are the 3 basically toughest defenses either of these teams have played. So if anything, I think the move here is to fade Colorado's offense, which I guess the market is sort of bought into given they're projected for 77 on KenPom and the line 75.5. Colorado is not going to be the 3rd best free throw rate team in the entire country, and they're not going to be the 9th best 3-point shooting team in the country. Both of those are going to come down significantly. With San Francisco, they're also shooting above their means. These are 2 top 15 3-point shooting teams by percentage this year. I don't think that Mookie Cook is a 69% 3-point shooter. That just doesn't seem right to me. He's not going to shoot 69% from 3. So on a neutral site where both these teams aren't comfortable shooting, Colorado finally away from home, the game shouldn't be that fast. San Francisco's really slowing it down this year. I think it's probably going under.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I believe this is an early local tip time too. 2 p.m. Eastern out there.
Ooh.
Probably looking at
That's
probably an 11 a.m. local tip. So you throw that into the mix. Yeah, great point about the Colorado hasn't left Boulder yet, and they've basically been scoring 95 points a game, pretty much. It has to overrate their offensive profile a bit. So yeah, I think I'm kind of with you on that. I could see that being a much lower scoring game than people expect, especially if they're going to go at it at 11 a.m. first time that they're out of altitude. I think that sometimes the altitude thing gets a little bit overblown, but in this case, like Colorado's ability to wear down lesser opponents at home and then get to like 100, specifically like caught a lot of the Providence game, and we can actually go to that game next, but caught a lot of the Providence game. I know that and again, I have a good buddy that went to Providence, is pretty tuned in, and he told me that they have a little bit of like internal conflict going on, and he told me that prior to that game, and then they go out and give up 97 points. So I kind of looked at that like, all right, again, how good do I think Colorado is? I don't think Providence is very good. So yeah, kind of makes sense. I think I'd be leaning toward USF here, just based on everything we just laid out.
Mm-hmm.
But Garth, I hope if you do bet that team total, I hope it gets there. Again, it could like you never. That's the thing with these like Thanksgiving break games, different gym. You just never know what you're walking into. And like last night, I thought NC State matched up great with Texas. Texas hit like 16 threes. I should have known, right? Maui in the soft rim. So good luck with what you decide to do there. But I think I would try to find a way to fade Colorado. That's ultimately what I think I would do in that game. So since I teased it, we should talk about Providence. And again, this is like, take these with a grain of salt. But what I've heard from someone that I know sort of knows is that there's a little bit of a rift between the incoming freshmen at Providence and the upperclassmen portal guys that also just got there. So it's actually like an interesting dynamic that's probably newer to college basketball, where you have like freshmen that are new to the school, but then like upperclassmen, but they're also like, they also showed up in August or May or June or whatever for the first time. And what my guy told me is that Kim English seems to gravitate toward the freshmen more than the hired guns, if you will. And that there's some little dissension between the freshmen and the upperclassmen portal guys, maybe not falling in line the way the upperclassmen think the freshmen should, so on and so forth. And then the freshmen maybe being a little bit more talented. Maybe they're a little bit more invested in them because they might be around longer. Point is, I don't really like this Providence team at all. You throw that into the mix, and now it kind of has me thinking like a certain type of way about them. Matt, it looks like the market's thinking a certain type of way about them as well. This was 4.5 up to 6.5. Do you agree with that move, Providence, Wisconsin?
I do. We talk about bye games not mattering. And Wisconsin's only non-bye game was one of the worst matchups they could have possibly drawn. Wisconsin's a typical Wisconsin team this year. Elite offensively, not a whole lot of individual defensive athletes. And they got A.J. DePonce and Richie Saunders in Utah. That's not a good equation. So that didn't go well. They lost a lot of points in analytic models because of it. Providence, the only time I've seen Providence this year, I watched almost the entire Penn State game, and they ended up winning that one by 12. Not a good depiction of the score. It was a 3-point game with 4 minutes left. And Penn State's awful. Providence takes horrible shots. Their shot selection stinks. And Wisconsin, while not athletic, are going to make you take tough shots because they're very analytically sound with their defense. They're going to allow a ton of mid-range jumpers. Providence will happily do that. And that's not a way to win a basketball game. I think that Wisconsin might be underrated because they lost a lot of those rankings because of that awful BYU game. And I think Providence is probably overrated. Like, they've gone 1-2 in their high major games. The Penn State game, again, way closer than it suggested. Lost to Virginia Tech, who might not be all that good, and then lost to Colorado, which talked about team to fade. This seems like Wisconsin probably just comes around and kills them. I think they probably win by 10 plus.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I'll go back to the Penn game for Providence where they dropped 106. I watched every possession of that game, and that was more like, I mean, it's a Fran McCaffrey Penn team, and he still hasn't, I don't think, really like done much work on the defensive end. It's like almost like a typical Fran team where like they'll get to that like at some point in time. They played no defense in that game, and then Providence just kind of decided, hey, we kind of want to lay into someone. They had just lost to Virginia Tech. They ran it up. So you're talking about a Providence team that got to 100 in, I believe, an overtime against Virginia Tech, dropped 100 on Penn, which is now Fran McCaffrey playing no defense, got beat by Colorado and gave up close to 100, and then played like you're saying, like that Penn State team is atrocious. That they're going to finish. They'll be competing with like one of like maybe 3 teams to finish last in the Big Ten this year. So yeah, I'm out on Providence right now, and I guess I'm in on that line move. I like Wisconsin as well. Speaking of bad Big Ten teams, we should acknowledge that the players era is still going. Like, shout out to these 4 teams that have agreed to stay for an extra day and play a game on Thanksgiving.
They didn't agree. These are the 4 worst teams. These are the 4 worst teams that had the worst record. They didn't agree. It was like, if you were one of the 4 worst teams, you got to play on Thanksgiving. That was their punishment.
Oh, that's so brutal. So yeah, your punishment is stay an extra day. If you thought the crowds were something the first 3 days, wait do you see the crowd or the lack of a crowd for these games today? UNLV is taking money. I disagree with that. I think I don't know why UNLV would be up to 4.5 here. They just played Maryland and Alabama basically with 7 guys. Like I looked at the box score quickly after that Bama game. I think they really only played 7 guys in that game. I know they were dealing with 8, but didn't one? I think one guy got in for maybe like 10 minutes tops. Like I thought there was
10 minutes. You count 8.
Yeah. Okay. We'll count it 8. All right. So the point is, they've been a little bit banged up. This is now going to be their 3rd game in 4 days. For whatever reason, it feels like UNLV gets a little bit of a bump on the number because these games are in Vegas, even though they're not in their home arena. And UNLV has very few. This isn't 1990. They have very few fans. I've been to games at Thomas and Mack that I thought were like big games, and the building was half full. I don't give them any bump for home court. And like as much as Rutgers is like really starting from the bottom now, no Harper, no Bailey. It's Pykell with an inexperienced team. that doesn't have much scoring and it's really like a restart, I still think they're scrappy enough where they should at least be considered equals with UNLV. What do you think about this one?
This is a game between a team with no talent and a team with no structure. You have no such thing as structure if you can lose to Montana at home by 9 and then turn around and beat Memphis in Memphis by 14. That just tells me that I don't want to touch you with a 10-foot pole. If you can beat a decent team on the road by 15 and then lose at home in a bye game by almost double digits, no thanks. They're just running for no reason. They're just playing really fast because they want to. They don't really do anything. They're just kind of on the floor doing they're playing good life pickup. It doesn't make any sense. And then Rutgers, they have no good players. I don't really know what to tell you. They can't dribble. They have no talent. Nothing interests me less than a team with no structure versus a team with no talent, because maybe the no structure just plays well and wins by 20, or maybe they get completely flummoxed by Peichel forcing the game to the half court. I guess the one thing I'd say is UNLV has played 73 plus possessions in all but one game this year. Rutgers has not topped 70 in any game this year. So maybe battle of pace wins. Maybe the more structured team wins the pace battle. If Rutgers slows UNLV down, UNLV might melt into soup because they don't get to run. But this is probably my least. If there was one game you were like, which game would you want to play the least? This is the one. Don't with this game. Just don't.
Yeah, I guess I'll point two final things out, and I guess they would sort of make your point. Maybe this is a game to stay away from. UNLV forced 20 turnovers against Maryland and still pretty much had no chance in that game. They forced 20 turnovers and held Maryland to 9 for 31 from 3-point range and still had no chance. That was actually one game I won this week. I was on Maryland and couldn't believe how comfortably they ended up winning that game with those things happening. The other thing is you talk about someone's in the chats laughing they didn't know that was and I didn't realize that was what they were doing. I guess it kind of makes sense. But imagine being Rutgers and you're okay, not only do you have to hang around for an extra day, but you got to fly back to New Jersey probably later tonight because they don't really want to pay for a hotel room tonight. These programs will do that. They're definitely getting out of there tonight. They're not staying another night. So that means Rutgers, this is a 1:30 local tip, I believe. They're headed to the airport right after that. UNLV is just going to go back to bed. They're going to just go back to their dorms. So maybe you do.
You know what the worst part is? After this game, they have their first 2 Big Ten games. Number 1 team in the country, Michigan and KenPom. Number 2 team in the country, Purdue. They have to stay on Thanksgiving in Las Vegas, then turn around and play Purdue and Michigan right after.
Yeah, that is brutal. So maybe you do give a little bump to UNLV just for the logistical edge of hey, we're it's pretty much just a normal game day. We're gonna wake up, go through our normal thing, go back to our own beds, and we don't have to travel. That's interesting. Yeah, that's something I think is worth noting. All right, Matt, we have 12 minutes left in the show. And I'm going to kick it to you. Do you know what your best bet on the slate is for today?
Ooh, best bet on the slate today with the lines that are currently out there. Let's go Nevada. Can I do a total? Are we going to?
Oh, yeah. You can do whatever. You can anything you want.
Okay. Nevada, Washington under 145 and a half. That's where we're going. Washington likely without Hans Steinbach, their superstar freshman who's been injured. They're down to 7 to 8 guys. Jasir Rencher was not supposed to play this year. He had 1 total minute in their first 3 games, and everyone got hurt, and he had to play 20 in their double overtime win against Southern. They needed 2 overtimes at home to beat Southern. Desmond Claude's come back, and Desmond Claude is not good. Desmond Claude is the most overrated player in college basketball because he scores a lot of points, but turns it over a ton and cannot shoot at all. That's a problem against Nevada, who plays one of the softest coverages in the country and basically forces you to beat them from three. Their one game that soared over was against Santa Clara, and Santa Clara made 12 threes on 48%. Washington doesn't like to shoot, and they can't do it. They only have Kamari Peterson as like a genuine three-point shooting threat. The only other player on their team that has more than 5 threes this season is Wesley Yates, and he's at 30%, and he had 4 out of his 9 threes in one game. Not a good shooter. No shooting on this roster. Flip it around. The one thing Washington does still have is a lot of size and a lot of length, and Nevada can't score at all. Nevada has played one team in the top 100 in defense so far, and they needed their best. They needed to hit half of their threes to barely top 1 point per possession against Santa Clara. Washington's not going to want to run because they have no players. Nevada's not going to want to run because they're bad. Should probably go under.
Yeah, I saw that move and figured it was probably on the spread in this game. Figured it is probably injury related. Nevada has not impressed me at all. I like that win over Santa Barbara. Like that's a whole nother conversation. Like Santa Barbara, I think sort of tricked us a little bit with like some of these like bringing in Mahaney and then the kid from Utah. Like that team just hasn't looked very good either. So that's probably Nevada's best result at this point. The Santa Barbara win. Barely beating Pitt Pacific, bad result. I guess the Louisiana Tech blew them out on opening night, but still, I'm what you're saying makes sense. I don't really have much of an opinion on this one, so I'll just leave it there. But yeah, you're under 145.5 definitely makes some sense. So what I'm going to do, I guess since I know we agree on this, well, I'm going to use Colorado State. I said it earlier in the show. I'm not going to rehash that game. We broke that game down. I'm just going to use Colorado State money line. I think it's probably like minus 120. They might be like a 1 point favorite right now. So I'd rather have the money line than the 1.5. So just to make it more uniform and people may see this later in the day, we're going to go Colorado State money line. And that's going to be my leg of the parlay, which means we still need to agree on one. So we've got 8 minutes left to sort of lock in a third one we agree on. And, we can throw out, let's go to Fixer here real quick. We'll hit the other players era. 2 other teams that I guess are being penalized for, I'm glad Creighton had to stay for an extra day because I had Creighton plus 9.5 on Tuesday. That game went off 4.5, and they didn't have a single shot in that game. 5 points on the number, no chance. So good that they had to stay in Vegas an extra day. And they'll have to play Oregon, Creighton, Oregon. What do you think about this one?
This is the ultimate vibes or low game. Like obviously Rutgers UNLV is the other bad game, but neither team really had high expectations going into this year. Oregon and Creighton both had really high expectations, and both have significantly underperformed expectations. Creighton hasn't really, neither of these teams have been close. Oregon hasn't even come within double digits of either of their 2 games and lost to San Diego State by 17 is pretty brutal. I don't really love playing a game where both teams just probably don't want to be there at all.
Yeah.
And just want to go home. So that I don't really have much of a thought on this one. In terms of undervalued, like, I don't know, Oregon probably can dominate down low. Creighton hates to double team the post. And Nate Biddle should destroy Owen Freeman. So, like, probably lean Oregon, but
Well, Steve says Oregon line flipped from opening. Jay's now favored. Again, this is not going to be something I bet on for pretty much what you just said. But, like, I don't really get why Creighton would be favored here, I guess. Like that, I mean, the Creighton basketball that I've really watched, like, this year, South Dakota destroyed them on the boards. I think they out-rebounded Creighton by 20 in that game. Just the complete no contest when Iowa State is without their best player and has a young backcourt and you can't find a way to stay within 10. The Baylor game wasn't that bad, but even like North Dakota, that's a bad team. And they sort of gave Creighton some trouble for stretches in that game. I mean, those are 2, North Dakota, South Dakota. Those are 2 games where Creighton was almost a 30-point favorite and came nowhere near covering the number.
They have
and
one cover. They have one cover, and it's Maryland Eastern Shore. That is not good.
one of the worst teams in Division I college basketball. So yeah, I guess like if you press me for something there, like I don't agree with it flipping to Creighton being the favorite. I suppose if you got to Oregon +2, you could talk me into Oregon. But again, goes back to like who even knows, who cares about this game? That's a problem.
Yeah, no one cares. Neither of these teams care. The fans won't be there. They don't want to be there. No one wants to be there. They just want to go home.
Yeah, I know the feeling, and I certainly wouldn't be like, it'd be tough to like lace them up and play a game if you're just like ready to get to the airport and go out and go home. All right, there's still a few games we haven't touched on. We'll think of I guess throw out. I'm not going to use Furman, obviously. That tips in 5 minutes. But if you missed earlier in the show, Matt and I did agree that Furman is probably the right side in that earlier game. So if you showed up late and you're looking for something to bet in the next 5 minutes, I think we both lean toward Furman. Other options, I mean, Wisconsin numbers moved a little bit. We could always we could take the bad number, or we can just juice up our two-teamer with a money line. It's really like, what do you think's a better move right there?
If we did my under and then Colorado State and Wisconsin money lines, it's probably the move. Yeah.
I think that's the move. We need to hit one of these. So just to give you a little recap, myself, Brian Power, and Rob Vino came out and hit 3-3-teamers the first week of the season, and we have not. So which is like crazy. Like that doesn't really happen that often, but we have not hit one since. So the goodwill that we built up from that first week, hitting for like 15 units on 3-teamers, is slowly dwindling away. So we need to win one of these. So I think I like the idea of, since we missed the number, just asking Wisconsin to win. Feels like a game that they're absolutely going to win. And then we'll go with each of our best bets, Colorado State and the under one. I'm going to calculate that, and I'm going to just let you throw out a game that we haven't touched on yet. Is there something interesting that we've missed on this board on this show so far?
Dayton, Georgetown is interesting. Dayton, I think, is actually way worse than projections suggest. They've dominated teams by being able to get steals and run out and transition against them. And then their 2 power conference games, double-digit loss to Cincinnati, who just lost by 8 to Eastern Michigan. So Cincinnati stinks. And then they needed OT to beat Marquette. Obviously, winning at Marquette is impressive, but Maryland did it and Indiana killed them. So Dayton hasn't done anything that's impressed me. Georgetown has beaten Clemson and Maryland, Clemson at home, Maryland on the road, and they still can't hit a 3 to save their lives. Eventually, they'll hit a 3. And when they do hit a 3, they'll win a lot of games. Georgetown is second in the entire country at preventing turnovers, first in the entire country at preventing getting the ball stolen. So Dayton's not going to get their steals here. If Dayton doesn't get their steals, they're not scoring baskets. So Georgetown should probably win that game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually ended up cashing a ticket earlier this week with Jacksonville. And a big reason I was sort of willing to play against Bethune-Cookman in that game was I was just like, I just couldn't believe what I was watching when they played Dayton, where it was like they somehow let Bethune-Cookman hang around in what was like a single-digit game, and it was just such a disaster. It was just such a mess that it made me think that, well, Bethune probably shouldn't be a 4.5-point favorite against Jacksonville after that. Just like that wasn't very aesthetically pleasing basketball. And sure enough, they went out and Jacksonville got the outright win in that game. So yeah, I'm kind of with you in terms of like being out on Dayton being any like actually good. Like obviously they're good in the respect that they're probably going to finish in the top like 5 or 6 teams in the A10.
Oh yeah.
But like, say again.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to finish top 3. Yeah.
Top 3. Yeah. I mean, now that we know Loyola Chicago doesn't have a team this year, they're definitely going to finish in the top 3. But yeah, against a Big East opponent where it's, you could argue that it's a slight step up for them. I think I'd be willing to fade Dayton there. So I think Georgetown is probably a good call.
Yep.
Do you put any stock into, no Uwachuku for Georgetown, huge part of the offense and down low, Dayton wins, GT has to figure out how to play without him. I don't know. I feel like they have other ways to go after it.
Vince Uwachuku has been good this year. I'm not going to dock Georgetown because he's out.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to move the number there much for that either. Okay, we have hit the 1 hour mark of the show. It is time to recap the parlay, and we're trying to win this one. So we have decided, since we missed the move on Wisconsin, our joint leg is just going to be the Wisconsin money line. Matt and I both think that they're going to beat Providence tonight, and this way we just need them to win. We don't have to take a bad number in the parlay. For Matt's leg, he's going to go Nevada, Washington under 145.5. And I will go Colorado State on the money line. Something I'm going to punch in as a client play as well. Terrified to do so after the last 2 days. But hey, it's got to turn at some point. And you know what's got to turn at some point? Wichita State just covering every number. That's not going to last the rest of the year either. So hopefully both those things happen today. I get a win, and Wichita State takes their first ATS loss of the season. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Appreciate you guys rocking with us here on the holiday. Stay safe. Hope everyone has a great day. If you're traveling, like I'm going to be in a little bit, go slow. You know, it's just get to your destination, and because we want you around tomorrow by 10 a.m. to come back and watch another edition of Full Court Press. Have a great day, everyone. Big thank you to Matt for filling in this week again. You can find him on his Twitter. I believe it's I really should put your Twitter handle on the screen, but it's at Matt Winnick.
Matthew Winnick.
At Matthew Winnick. So just his name in Twitter for the handle. And then you can find him at Basket Under Review. Again, happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you guys tomorrow.